Hi everyone, welcome back to Coffee Books and Rain. I'm Rachel with a big thing of water since it is later in the evening. I did actually have a cup of coffee when I got off work because it helped get me through my workout. Some people take pre workout, I take coffee. But we are diving into a book that I just finished, I think, yesterday. Now, it's a little bit long, so it did actually take me a couple of days to get through, plus, I was working on a few other books as well. But this one is The Violet Raven by E. Starr. And I will say it's getting great reviews on Goodreads, and I also give it a great review as well. Let us dive into the summary and see what we think. Okay. The Raven Queen awaits. Who will rise up and answer the call? 1823. Tronia Sinclair was never meant for an ordinary life. A spark of something powerful has always lived within her, silent and still, until the moment it finally woke. A moment of fire and ruin. With her world shattered, Tronia escapes into the wilds of Scotland, flanked by 4 allies, each loyal in their own way. But none of them challenge her quite like Finn McGregor, her fiercest defender, the one who's always been there in the shadows and in silence and wanted her long before she ever looked this way, a bond as sure as the stars. But fate is written with ink no one can rewrite. Hunted for power she doesn't yet understand, Tronia must seek allies in a world brimming with myth and memory. Survival is no longer enough. A buried magic is calling. To protect her world and the people she loves, she must decide if she can embrace the destiny that calls to her, no matter the cost. So I will say between each of those little paragraphs, there was like da 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 da, and so reading it makes it very, I guess, it's kind of a little more imposing. Like it's trying to be a little more powerful. In my personal thoughts, it's a little pretentious, but it's not bad. It does say the Violet Raven is a thrilling beginning of the Warriors of the Raven Queen series. It's perfect for fans of dark fantasy, slow burn forbidden romance, and epic hero's journey. Readers who love Outlander, Last Kingdom, Discovery of Witches, and Lord of the Rings will be captivated by this sweeping blend of historical romance and fantasy, where cultural heritage collides with otherworldly forces, with its mature romance, intimate storytelling, and a tapestry of history and myth. All right, we'll go ahead and call it there because it's really tooting its own horn. Now, it was very good, and I had a great time reading it because it felt like we weren't rehashing completely the same story that we've been hearing forever and ever. This underdog girl taking up the mantle or being the chosen one. Now, yes, Tronia or Catronia is the chosen one. I mean, it's what we come to learn. She is pretty much the chosen one. We can't really get past that trope. But because we seem to focus a lot on myth, lore, and legend of Scotland, then it feels a little bit more magical in my personal thoughts. We are kind of creating new scenery and new scenarios, but in a realm that feels kind of couched in a familiar myth or lore or something that we could go out and actually research outside of this book series. Now, when I did pick up this ebook, and it is a girthy ebook of 678 pages, Kindle edition, I did notice that for about 10 pages, we have a lot of Scottish and possibly Irish, maybe it's Gaelic, words and pronunciations and definitions. I appreciate that, and I found that to be very useful if I had a physical copy. Because again, when you have an ebook and you run across a word, term, or phrase and you want to refer back to those pages, it's incredibly difficult in my personal thought because you always have to bookmark the page you're on, bookmark the appendices or what have you, go back to the appendices, then go back to the page you bookmarked, and it just becomes a little bit burdensome. Whereas I could just put like a little tab in my book where that appendices is to tell me those words and phrases and what they mean. So when I run across them in the book, I am able to then refer back. I do love that they used like I said, a lot of words and phrases and even kind of like colloquial words or I'm trying to think of the best way to put it because I guess it would be more or less Gaelic slang or Scottish slang. I wish I could be more precise with that, but some of the words I do recognize from if you've ever read any Nac McFeagle or like I guess it's Terry Pratchett and like the Tiffany Aching books where she talks about the Nac McFeagle who are like they are kind of encompassing of these, I guess, Scottish, I guess, gumption. Gumption's a good word, right? But they say some things like Dinnikin, and they like I think that means they don't know or don't understand. But some of that is also in this book as well. Also, reading it is written in a style that is kind of like in that Scottish Baroque or that Gaelic slang word. So there's some characters who speak in that way. So you have to read those sentences that way as well. I found that that was pretty easy to get through and understand. It was just some of like the little words for what I assume was like my love or my dear, and some of that I was kind of like I was like if I could go back to the appendices and make sure I'm understanding this right, then it would be great. I will say that I thought it was pretty captivating. I think the first 10% was just a little slow for me, and actually, it took me just a minute to realize that a couple chapters are kind of like, I don't know, they're done in almost a diary style because it tells us the date, and then it tells us like the date and year, and then it tells us like the next day, and then the next day. So they're kind of done in kind of diary style. But then we get a chapter that I didn't pay attention to, which was set like a month in the past. So I was like, oh crap. And so then I had to go back and I was like, wait, when was this? And then when was the other thing? So I do wish I had the physical copy for this because it would have made reading it so much easier. I think with this kind of book anyway, I just want a physical copy so I can see my progress and get to like, all the good stuff. But I thought it was really well developed. The characters were nicely described, nicely depicted. They were complex enough, and our main character is. I do wish I could kind of see more of her kind of ferocity that I know is there because you can tell she has a powerful spirit. I do feel like at some points in this book we probably we're missing a little of that. I don't really know how to describe it, but I think you'll understand. The I think the main male crush is really good. I do really enjoy that. I'm not trying to dive too much into spoiler territory. I think this is going to go over really well with the audience once they find it. I didn't understand the magic system too much. I do think we could have done better with kind of explaining that. I don't know if we are diving into more or less like a traditional magic system of just having like powers and abilities or like what we're doing. Now it says it's supposed to be like, what does it say up here? Let me just scroll back real quick. It's rich tapestry, intimate storytelling, and then it's like historical romance, mature romance, forbidden romance. It definitely reads like a fantasy romance novel. Just gonna put that out there. If you are looking for a historical mythology based, like familiar yet new mythology based fantasy romance, this may be one that you want to pick up. Um, it's just, I, anyway, romance is not always my thing, but it was pretty good. It is quite long. I think that's probably one of my biggest issues is I don't think this book needed to be nearly 700 pages. I think we could have probably done with maybe a third less in this book. Introduce me the characters, give me some fantastic Irish fantasy, like heritage thing, Celtic legends. Um, Give me all of that, and then let's move on to book two. Leave me wanting more, which, I mean, I'm excited to see what comes in book two, but I think we need to make it a little more succinct so it's more clear to the reader. Um, anyway, I think that's some of my favorite things about it, and also some of my thoughts about it with regards to. I'm looking at a few comments just to make sure I'm not like forgetting what I wanted to mention. Catronia or Tronia has some brothers, so they're pretty good characters. We don't have to worry about the romance with them, just letting you know. But I do love Finn. He is really, really sweet. He is so cute. Um, and a little bit almost too sweet. I mean, I guess you kind of want some characters that are like book boyfriends that your readers walk away swooning over, which is fine. But I don't feel like we have to make them like, I don't know. Like they say, hidden softness. The way he calls her little doe completely stole my heart. And I was like, yeah, maybe it's just me, but I think I need a little bit more headbutting with my like not in a toxic way, but I need someone who balances me out instead of fawning at my feet. My personal request when it comes to some sort of partner. Um, Tronia is a really good character to follow. Um, Trying to think. This person says she's feisty. I agree with that. Um, yeah, I'm just kind of looking to see if there's anything else. This person also says pretty solid story overall, which I think I have conveyed to you guys, and it does feel way more romantasy. So this is a romantasy. So like fantasy is good. I like when we lean more into the fantasy, my personal preference, but I do understand that romantasy has really kicked up a notch. One of my friends, her name is Hannah. She has, I think it's just a smut book club, is what she calls it. She's asked me if I like wanted to join, and I was like, no, thank you. I think I have a lot of other books that I'm reading right now. I don't think I can focus on that much smut or spice. Now, I don't find, like, when I say it's romantasy, I don't mean to insinuate that there's just like a ton of spiciness to it. But the ending does definitely set us for a second one, so I'm interested. I want to see where we go from here, and I give it probably a 4.25 stars, but when it comes to rating it on Goodreads, I'm probably going to go ahead and just round it up. I do hate that I just can't give it an authentic rating like I would really love to, but that's just my personal thought. Yeah. So I think I'm going to leave it there. I know I'm not telling you a ton about the story because it's such a large story. I could tell you how in the first few pages, Catronia is like a little girl listening to bedtime stories of her mom talking about the Raven Queen. And then the next couple chapters, she's kind of grown up. She's going out to a castle with her brothers, blah, blah, blah. I could tell you all that, but the thing is you're just going to have to read it if you want to know more. That's one. But since it's such a large, thick book, I think to break it down into consumable pieces would take either several episodes or one really long one, and I'm just not sure you all are here for that. I'm not really here for that. Considering that romantasy is not actually like my it's not my wheelhouse, is maybe not the best phrase for it. I don't know. It's not the one that I gravitate towards. I probably do murder mystery suspense a little bit more frequently, as you can tell. I do a lot of humor, which I love. I love sci-fi. Those are some of my favorites. But as for Romantasy, this one's cute. I think it's going to definitely fit into the probably YA realm. Probably not. Don't put it next to Sarah J. Maas. I don't think it's that level of romantasy, if you know what I mean. But with all of that being said, I do want to thank you all for tuning in. If you have not liked and subscribed already, I hope you will. And thank you for joining me on this journey. I will see you all on the next page.